Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Anime Night in the Dojo. Today's featured show, ReZero, Season 4.
Yep, ReZero, Season 4, Episode 10. Welcome back to the Dojo. I'm Ryu. That's Age. We're back for more Anime Night in the Dojo. And well, last time we had the head scratcher. I hope all that scratching will lead to something this episode. More than likely next episode. We'll just have to see. If they kind of do what they did last season, where when they split the two different arcs like they did last time, and that's why they're doing the split core thing, is just, these 11 episodes are the chapter 6, right? Volume 6, and then the second 8 are volume 7.
It's arc 6 and 7.
Yeah,
multiple volumes.
Yeah, arc 6 and 7. So that's why that is being split that way. So again, just something to keep in mind as to how they're doing it. I'm going to continue my out of context stills that make zero sense for this season, because that's just how I'm feeling about it. Just you look at that still and you go, yeah, that last episode wasn't too bad, right? Well, there was brutally murdering and stuff like that. And well, the name of this episode is, murder is a habit. So, so we'll just have to see what happens here. But again, still not holding my breath out on any 10 out of 10 here. I know the last 3 episodes got like 9, 5, and above. Last episode, while fine, I would not put it in the 9 category.
Yeah, last episode was the one that everyone was initially losing their shit about rating higher than the Maki episode, and everyone going off about how, like, oh no, JJK wasn't even the highest rated thing this season, it was ReZero.
Yeah, and that was... I don't know what people have anything to base it on. I didn't talk about this last time, so I'll mention it a little bit here. And I might talk about it a little bit more in the Patreon section. But, which, once again, all that crap's free. Just don't think that's paywalled ever. But, the Avatar The Last Airbender live action. I'm fairly certain that they got greenlit for the entire series, right? So we're going to get the atrocity that is this live action, and a lot of people are, like, excited for it, and, like... Not that IGN's ratings mean anything. They gave it an 8 out of 10, which is mind-boggling to me. I'm going to watch it just so I can make fun of it. I'm going to spite watch that second season, because the first season was arguably one of the worst things I've ever watched, ever. They eviscerated the source material. It's not even up for debate. You know what I mean? It's basically like, I haven't seen it, and I don't have a lot of Devil May Cry knowledge. But what the current, head of the Devil May Cry anime did to the DMC verse. Like, a lot of people are pointing out, all these changes and horrible things that have happened. What they did with the Avatar The Last Airbender stuff, just... It's like somebody read the cliff notes of the series and were like, we're going to make this grittier and darker. It's like, no, all you have to do is color in the lines and do a shot-for-shot remake and people would probably loved it. You know what I mean? Look what they're doing with the One Piece live action. Even without knowing anything very much about One Piece and those first 200 some odd episodes of the series, because I've watched the middle 200, and by middle 200 I should say from episode 220 to episode 530 is my concrete knowledge of One Piece. I know that's good, and everything that they've shown so far in the first 2 seasons has been Oda approved and great, and how a live action should be. You have the source material. Just color in the damn lines. You're not there. Your job isn't to change stuff or make it more gritty or make it different. If you're going to do that, at least have the balls to say, hey, this is some weird alternate timeline where everybody hates Aang and he's like a weirdo. And I saw a clip of this season where he's offering to bless people. And it's he's the Avatar, not a freaking roaming priest. You know what I mean?
Just imagine what they're going to do with Toph.
Yeah, I don't know. You know what I mean? It's just mind-boggling that those have to be bot accounts that are claiming that they're excited for this. It's if you're a fan of the original series that aired on Nickelodeon 20 years ago now at this point, and you think the live action is good at all, you're out of your mind. I'm sorry. That's a hill I will die on. The first season was hot garbage.
The only person I've seen who genuinely likes the first season is cheese, and he likes it because it's bad.
Yeah.
He is notoriously known for his trash tastes and liking things that are shitty.
Right. But from an objective standpoint, no. You can like be like cheese or buddy cheese and be like that, that's fine. But if you look at that and say, yeah, this is good, objectively good, you're out of your damn mind. Like, that's not even up for debate. Everything in season 1 was an absolute dumpster fire, complete deviation from what it needed to be. You know what I mean? And I have no words for that. I have so many words that I have no words. I could go on. So we need to stick to ReZero. Maybe we'll do a because it being a Netflix series, it all released already, right? So I could go watch it. Not that I have a Netflix account right now, but you know, it being Netflix, I could go throw an email address out there on a proxy address and make an account and watch it, and then never go back to that email address and account ever again. You know what I mean? If you don't have a Netflix account, that's all you have to do. Get a VPN, make up a friggin' email, get a friggin' account, and just that's it. You can do that as many times as you need to for trials. It's not Netflix's user retention. There's so many ways around it, you guys. It's just whatever. Either way, as for ReZero, yeah, we'll just have to see everything we talked about last time, and hopefully the itch will be scratched in this episode at least a tiny bit. You know, maybe one of the gluttonies shows up or something. You know, the actual real Subaru that we talked about like fights his way through or something beyond the blackouts. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So yeah, this definitely should be interesting. But again, I'm still not holding my breath on any 10 out of 10, especially if, once again, the last episode was part of people freaking out. It's interesting, absolutely. The head scratcher, I appreciate it for what it is, not being able to put stuff together, you know, immediately, and you really have to think about it, or you just have to really wait for the next episode for things to be explained. That's fine, but that doesn't necessarily knock out a 10 out of 10. You know what I mean? If I have to put a number on last episode, it's like a 7.5. You know what I mean? It's fine. You know,
I'd give it like an 8 out of 8.5. Like it was definitely good. But once again, there was a lot of questions, not a lot of answers.
Yeah. So I'm more harshly on this series because of a certain main character rolling around. That will always be my biased kind of this thing. It was just kind of there, you know. And once again, a solid C+ is still just, you know, a good episode. So that is what it is. But we're gonna push some buttons and get going here. This is still, yeah, every episode I check to see if it's gonna be like the extended duration, you know, like ReZero. A lot of ReZero is like the extended, like 29 minutes kind of thing. So I always check that.
Yeah.
But so far it's just been the bog standard, you know, 23 and a half minutes average.
Yeah, we've only been going really average length episodes, but we still have been skipping the OP or ED a lot of episodes.
Right. But either way, we're going to push some buttons and get going here. So people on Patreon, we'll see you on the other side of the edit for the timer reaction, and people on YouTube Beyond, we'll see you on the other side for the discussion and review. And check out all the links down there. Once again, I set up my Twitch channel to be Dojo TV of all of our old stuff that got, you know, bonked from the previous channel. So if anybody wants to see that, that'll just be running on the days that I'm not live streaming. So all the links are down there. Check them out, whatnot. If you want to, we're there. So here goes some. Well, alrighty then, you guys have it. It's straight at the gate, since we were just talking about it a little bit at the end of or a reasonable amount, to be honest, at the end of the reaction there. A little rant about ratings and the differences between two different industries. This was a solid episode, but absolutely not a 10 out of 10. So, anyway, let's just get that out of the way. It was fine, totally fine. You know, I give it solid 8.5 to 9. You know, it was good. Did everything that it needed to. Melee's backstory was interesting. I appreciated that. I like the fact that they, and I think it was a good thing. I like and think that it's a good thing that they did kind of like the lust stuff with Melee in this kind of situation, like they did with Elsa haunting Garfield and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's like curious if that is something to do with the actual like lust factor or whatnot, because so far we've seen 2 examples of it, and they both have been Capella's quote unquote children with their murderers.
Yeah. So like these situations here, like this is after the fact, and this was just, you know, Melee's ghost or lust factor potentially, with, you know, they more like super confirmed it in this, where, you know, it's like Elsa was just the one that came after her, and oh my god, Miss Lagunica, I forget what her first name was.
Capella.
Bella was the mother, and we saw what she did to Melee in her backstory, which was, oh man, that was something. So yeah, it's that was hard confirmed. The again, Melee's backstory was very good. The way they handled it was quite good. Pacing was good for that, all that, you know what I mean. But we're still in the head scratcher stuff, because obviously everything we talked about last time was the other Subaru seems to be a gluttony. That was definitely like the brother's mannerisms when it was him out of his mind and he was talking to Melee in the flashback that the book gave him. You know what I mean? That wasn't like you know, what we potentially put out there is like, oh, maybe it's the actual Subaru with all of his memories fighting back. It's like, no, this seems to be a new gluttony power that we kind of speculated on, of them just being able to control whoever they've taken memories and or name from. You know what I mean?
Yeah, which we haven't really seen so far. We do know they have the ability to like take on characteristics and powers of people who they've eaten. Because like that was the whole thing with like, we saw, I don't remember if it was Roy or Lai, but whichever one fought Julius, taking on the mannerisms of his younger brother, and then the one of them like explaining the whole thing of like him using their power to like make himself, to improve his like physical martial arts abilities and stuff like that.
Right.
By taking on like the powers of someone who was a martial arts expert that he'd eaten.
Yeah. So that's just one of those things where this outright pretty much confirms it, that it's a gluttony power. It has to be. That was their mannerisms. You know what I mean? Whether it was Roy, Lai, it doesn't matter. It could be the sister. She could have the same mannerisms for this kind of thing. You know what I mean? Maybe it was the sister for Rem, and maybe it is Roy or Lai for this situation, because this is how they spoke. You know what I mean? Yeah,
I'd assume it's one of the brothers with Subaru, because personality-wise, and that one of the sisters is the one who possesses Rem if shit goes south.
Right. So, yeah, we're still in Head Scratcher Town. I appreciate that for what it is. I think it's quite good to kind of like have the audience like really playing the whodunit game, basically. That kind of situation. They talked about like great detectives and stuff like that. That's another tie into that kind of thing. The whole murder becoming a habit thing, that is, you know, habits form, and whether it's murder or just, you know, you picking your nose, it's a habit. It's hard to break, no matter what it is. So you got to appreciate that for what it is. But yeah, the rest of this was just pretty much the major points were, you know, Cheryl has to know what's going on in the tower. This was her saying, hey, I know what you did last summer, but I'll take care of it kind of situation. And in case anybody forgot, you know, here at the end, Rom is, you know, able to see through the eyes of any beast. Saw that earlier this season.
Well, yeah, it's her. I believe they call it like clairvoyance or whatever. It's, yeah, she can see through the eyes of other living beings, with beasts and stuff like that being the easiest, because they don't really have a will to fight back against her.
Right. So this was her seeing Super, you know, walking up the stairs and like shushing, and that's why Patrochet just kind of like looks at him like, what are you on about? So
yeah, from what we know, she doesn't have any sort of control over the animal, but she can still see what they see. Right. So yeah, she just was remoting into Patrochet to see what Patrochet was doing and keep an eye on Subaru, because she already suspected something of him.
Yep. So this creates an interesting conundrum for this version of Subaru. His plan could potentially be kill everybody and read their death books to figure out who's on his side and why. You know what I mean?
that is an option, is go through, kill everyone, read their death books to get the full context for the entire situation of like knowing who everyone is, what they've been doing, what they're plotting, anything like that.
Yeah. So
The
doing
problem
that, accomplishing that as him, though, is going to be kind of an endeavor. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the problem is he doesn't have the ability to do that for a lot of them.
Yeah.
He would have to find some way to get them killed instead.
Yeah.
And some of them, we don't even know if they would necessarily leave behind death books, like Beatrice being a spirit. We don't know if spirits have death books.
Right.
And also, like, if, say, Anastasia died, would Echidna's death book appear?
Yeah.
When Echidna is the one you would actually need the knowledge on.
Right. Lots of questions still. It'll be interesting to see what is answered in the last episode. I can say this, I'm kind of glad that we were still on the double episodes for this, because having to wait a week between the last one and this one probably would have drove me nuts, and having to wait for next week for to continue and wrap this up is already going to drive me nuts enough as it is. But
Which is one thing I was going to bring up. For clarity's sake, I looked it up, and Arc 7 has nothing to do with this, so this has to conclude next episode. But the main plot of Arc 7 is apparently something to do with, like, going to, like, Priscilla's home nation or whatever. And it's not related to the Pleiades Towers at all.
got it. So we got to wrap this up in one episode. Oh boy. So yeah, that should be something then. Maybe it will be a 10 out of 10 then. Who knows? Because if they have to pull that off in one episode, that's going to be something.
Yeah, it is ReZero, so they might do an extended or a double-length final episode or something. I don't know, but yeah, there's a lot to have to wrap up in one episode, since apparently Arc 7 isn't a continuation of the Pleiades Tower.
Right. So there's some meta knowledge for you guys. This doesn't really mean anything. Knowing that it wraps up doesn't really do anything for you. You know what I mean? So we already knew that the arc had to end at some point, and that's why they were splitting it. So, it could potentially be kind of like how they did last season. But yeah, knowing that doesn't really help the situation. It gets resolved one way or another, yeah, but I mean, it doesn't matter that it gets resolved. Knowing that it gets resolved doesn't do anything. There's so many frigging questions of like, yeah, it gets resolved. Okay. There's like 27 more questions that are more important than it gets resolved.
Yeah, like we already knew that this arc ends next episode. The question, and what I was just clarifying was whether or not the next arc had anything to do with this setting, or if we were completely done with the Pleiades Towers and moving on.
Right. So, something to think about. So, it has the potential then, just based on that little bit of extra meta knowledge, but still not holding my breath, because these two are certainly not 10 out of 10s. They're good. Good sandwich, but, not the let's throw a freaking celebration for a 10 out of 10 episode, stuff that people are throwing around. And once again, do I need to mention that IGN gave, The Last Airbender an 8 out of 10 for this most recent season? Ain't no way. Not that, once again, nobody should listen to IGN. That's a PSA from us here, is IGN's ratings are waste of everybody's time. It means nothing. So, we'll just have to see. Something I will say about Miele's flashback in her death book. Why did Subaru knit a doll of Elsa for her? Maybe it was supposed to be a doll of her. Maybe that's what that was. But she was like choking it like it was Elsa. You know what I mean?
It was an Elsa. It was an Elsa doll.
Yeah.
But yeah. Maybe a familiarity thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe.
I don't know.
That one was definitely just kind of like, really? But yeah, the whole Amelia thing with wanting to give her more freedom and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, maybe she wants to learn from Subaru based on all that stuff that was in her death book and stuff like that. I mean, she's still technically beholden to lust until somebody does something about her. You know what I mean? But
Yeah, she's, even if Lust doesn't have any sort of special power or anything related to her, which she probably does with this whole ghost shenanigans, she still has, the years of indoctrination to deal with.
yeah. So that's a whole other side thing. But yeah, I mean, I hope it's good. You know what I mean? Like I said, these last couple of episodes have been fine. They've been solid, but not like, let's bounce off the walls, like, holy crap, best thing we've ever seen, 10 out of 10 kind of stuff. The intrigue I appreciate, the head scratchiness, and not knowing how things are going to go. I really do appreciate that in the day and age of, what do you want to even call that? Like, obviousness, I guess, or like, if you guys played or watched anybody play God of War Ragnarok, where the fates in that just they have that line to Kratos and Freya. It's just like, all you guys make the stereotypical decisions, so we're just reading in between the lines. You make so many stereotypical, easy, bog standard decisions that you're just making us look like we're omniscient. You know what I mean? You're just doing all the easy stuff. You know what I mean? You're doing the bog standard, just
Yeah, we don't actually see her. We don't actually see her write the future. You guys are just so predictable.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Predictable. You know what I mean? Things that in the anime industry that you've seen before, or in writing stuff that you've seen before, and stuff like that. And it gets harder and harder to kind of obfuscate what's going on these days with writing and stuff like that, where you could point to it and be like, well, this is one of those situations, which again, in a different setting, it's totally fine. People, full Philip J. Fry, people love seeing the same stuff they've seen 1,000 times before, just, in a different cast, in a different set of characters, in a different show, whatever it is. Here's another rom-com that's similar to this show and similar to that show, but it's a different set of characters and it still can be good. You know what I mean? That's totally fine. But being predictable is part of what we do, and we can just like look at how writing is and just be like, well, this is probably one of those situations, and a lot of the time it's one of those situations. This, I have no idea what's going on. Straight up, this is great for that reason.
Yeah, I got some ideas, like I've said, but nothing really concrete.
We're getting the drip feed, with obviously, like in this episode, it's obviously the gluttony mannerisms taking over him, not the what we threw out there as a potential possibility outside of that was, potentially the real Subaru with all his memories fighting back. That's obviously not what's going on there. So, we're getting drip fed what's going on. But other than that, yeah. I don't know. But I'm very excited to see how this wraps up. And, hopefully it sticks the landing, and it is very good. I'm not saying I don't want it to be a 10 out of 10. Don't misconstrue that at all. I'm just very skeptical when people throw that out there, because a lot of people throw out the GOAT term, the greatest of all time stuff these days, like it means nothing, and it should mean something. But I mean, 10 out of 10 should mean something. It should be earned. Even super high ratings, like beyond 9.5s, are should be earned and stuff like that. And from an objective standpoint, most of that stuff in Jujutsu Kaisen this season was not that. But the last episode, yeah, that was quite good. That should be over a 9.5. You know what I mean? But the Maki episode, absolutely not. These last two episodes, ReZero, absolutely not. Still, you could give it between an 8.5 and like a 9, that kind of thing. But nothing above that, I don't think, for what it does, because it didn't like do anything super spectacular. It has the head scratchiness, the unpredictability. That's cool, absolutely very good. But the 10 out of 10 is, like I said last week, you know it when you see it, and these two weren't that. Were they very good? Absolutely. But it's not a 10 out of 10. Just sticking to that rating stuff, which is something I don't want to do, but since it's so prevalent these days, you just kind of have to bring it up and point it out, kind of like unrock the boat basically and calm everybody down. It's like, you guys need to take it down a notch. You know what I mean? So anyway, that's all I really got for this one. We got some information, that kind of stuff. It will be interesting to see if something that's interesting to think about from this situation here, that Melee could just be dead. You know what I mean? This could be resolved and she stays dead. You know what I mean? I think that's kind of one of the bigger points of intrigue here is like we're pushing up against the point of Subaru's death reset point where it was. You know what I mean? Has he gotten another checkpoint? That kind of thing. Is the checkpoint beyond Melee at this point? If he starts killing people to read their death books, where's his checkpoint? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it becomes a whole other kind of problem. So that's just something to think about as well. And that's always in the back of my mind with this series is just like, where's the next checkpoint? You know, it's been a full day, that kind of thing, you know, so something to think about. We very well could be out Melee, you know what I mean? So it's, we'll just have to see what happens with that. But yeah, that's just kind of my last thoughts on that kind of thing is, where is his checkpoint? And we very well could be moving forward without Melee because it's beyond the checkpoint and it gets resolved after her death. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So, you know, that's all I got.
So I'm attempting to, you know, not get spoiled, but try to clarify. It seems like while these are separate story arcs, that the next 8-episode bit is still technically within arc 6, and that it is still going to be Pleiades Tower stuff, so it's not over next episode.
Okay.
It seems like it's an issue of people using the same terms for multiple things kind of thing, where arc 6 is actually broken into 2 separate arcs itself.
So just like 6, 1, and 2.
Basically, like there's the first half of arc 6 and the second half of arc 6 are technically considered different story arcs, but still arc 6. And it seems like that's the case. That it's not going to be over the next episode, that they're just taking a break between the 2 like mini arcs within the arc.
Got it.
And that arc 7, the one I was talking about that I looked up, that's supposed to be more related to like Priscilla and her faction and stuff like that, isn't to this season at all.
Got it. So yeah, there you guys have it. A little bit of extra information if you don't read the manga. If you read the manga, you probably know, unless you're not caught up to this point. So that is what it is. So, you got anything else, Age?
That's the most I can put together without going into potential spoilers. Like I said, I have ideas, but not enough real information to like concretely say anything. I'm still sus on Shaola. This is definitely some form of gluttony play. Lust could be involved. We still don't really know what's up with Flugel, apart from the fact that he named Shaola after a constellation, and all of the current archbishops inexplicably are named after real-world constellations as well. So there could be some other connection, some connection between Flugel and the Sin archbishops. We'll have to see if Melee is permanently dead. Though, even if she is permanently dead, she's not permanently out of the story, because once again, we've now seen that it seems like Capella's quote-unquote children all seem to have the ability to possess whoever kills them.
Right.
Or haunt whoever kills them.
Yep. So, lots of questions abound. Well, I'm sure we'll have a bunch more to talk about next time. But yeah, there you guys have it. This was ReZero, Season 4, Episode 10, and still a lot of questions, but still pretty damn interesting and quite good across the board. But once again, to smack that 10 out of 10 down, not that. Sorry. Still very good, just not that. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, people of YouTube, beyond whoever you're watching, as always, we appreciate you stopping by and hanging out here in the dojo. Again, ReZero, Season 4, Episode 10. We'll see you next week for Episode 11, which is been on the screen too long, so it kicked me to to that. But yeah, we'll wrap up next week, and then we'll be back in August when it starts again for the second part of Arc 6. as Age figured out today. So yeah, so we'll talk about more of the schedule next time as well. I have plans, so we should be fine to fill it with more stuff than just slime or not slime, considering the dub seems to have died or something. I haven't looked into that, but talk about that on slime. So again, everybody have a good one, and we'll see you next time.
Hey everyone, Victoria here. If you enjoyed the video, please consider pushing those like and subscribe buttons. Your support is greatly appreciated. Thanks again for your time, and we hope to see you again in the future.